Eclectic medicine was an American branch of herbal medicine. And if you wanted to study it back in, say, the 1850s, you could have done so at the Eclectic Medical College of Pennsylvania. It opened somewhere around here in Philadelphia in 1851. The building was between Arch and Race west of 6th on Haynes Street, which doesn't exist in this spot anymore, but it is in McElroy's Philadelphia City Directory from 1851, so take that, haters. In 1858, the college moved a few blocks north to 6th and Callow Hill, where you'll now find self-storage and a goat huff. Unfortunately, there was drama between the eclectic medical practitioners, leading the dean, Dr. Payne, yes, I am serious, to leave and start his own rival eclectic medical college down the street. Both of those colleges would eventually be shut down for running diploma mills, schools where people could purchase medical degrees with no actual medical training. The final home of the Eclectic Medical College of Pennsylvania before it met its fate was at 514 Pine Street, now a row home that is estimated to be worth $782,700. It was closed for good in 1880 when Dr. John Buchanan, who ran the school, was arrested for running a fraudulent medical school. He attempted to evade trial by faking his own death on the ferry from Philly to Camden, but the authorities eventually got his ass in Canada. He was sentenced to Eastern State Penitentiary, the Quaker prison where they kinda sorta accidentally invented solitary confinement. Oops, it's a tourist attraction now. By 1939, all the eclectic medical schools in the US were closed. Not all of them were running competitively self-destructive diploma mills. Some of them were indeed teaching eclectic medicine, but even those were eventually phased out with the rise of medical licensing boards. There's still a few eclectic medicine enthusiasts out there keeping the practice alive. But if you want an unaccredited degree in 2024, you will have to look elsewhere.
It was good enough for our fathers. It was good enough for our mothers. It's good enough for our fathers. It's good enough for me. Give me that good old time lobelia. Give me that good old time lobelia. Give me that good old time lobelia. Yeah, it's good enough for me.
Eclectic medicine may be mostly dead, but diploma mills very much persist. You, yes you, can get an advanced degree with no academic work and a few $100. It's estimated to be a $7 billion a year industry that grants over 50,000 diplomas a year. Those degrees have gone to everyone from Dr. John Gray, author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Now, when we're courting a woman, we're not really ready to give the big stuff. So all we're willing to do is the little stuff. And that's what opens women up, is lots of little stuff.
To Dr. Carl Baugh, who operates a creation evidence museum.
If some of the mysteries of the fossil record, like fish-like creatures that apparently had legs.
To David Duke himself.
Former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, now a candidate for the U.S. Senate from Louisiana.
Here we have such a corrupt media in this country.
Enough pets have been granted a PhD from a diploma mill that the phenomenon has its own Wikipedia page. Certainly operating a diploma mill is illegal, is what you're thinking right now. This is fraud. They're fleecing people left and right. We need to be tough on diploma mills. All the way back in the 80s, there was an FBI sting operation into diploma mills called Operation Dip Scam for Diploma Scam. Not their best work in the naming department. Could have gone with like Operation PhD's Nuts, something in that territory. I don't know. They didn't ask me. And that is low-key it as far as nationwide efforts to stop diploma mills go. There's no federal ban on them, and state laws vary pretty widely, from fines or jail time if you use a fake degree to try and get a job, or we pretend we do not see it. Wisconsin.
Dixie Randolph and several others were raided by the Secret Service back in August of 2005. The feds believe they sold fake degrees to 121 fictitious schools. These folks are really the first people to be charged criminally in the country for this.
Stacy and Keith, for a few $1,000s, you could get a PhD from LaSalle University in Louisiana. At one point, Mel Jurado agreed to pay a fine for embellishing her bio with a reference to a degree from there, but the State Ethics Commission voted to double that.
There was one diploma mill related investigation into the US government itself after an employee of the Department of Homeland Security was found to have a PhD from a diploma mill in 2004. Through the investigation, they found that 463 other federal employees were enrolled in unaccredited universities at the time, over half of which were in the Department of Defense. Cool. Since then, the FTC will occasionally shut one of these bad boys down for fraud, but the internet has basically let diploma mills proliferate with abandon. If you wanted to go on this here internet and order a PhD, you could do so very easily on websites like instantdegrees.org or collegedegreefast.com or buylifeexperiencedegree.com, which is often how these websites will advertise what they're doing. Like, you can buy this degree to represent your 10 years of expertise in your field. But you don't actually have to prove that expertise. You can truly just go pick whatever you want for your PhD, like you are at a strange academic salad bar. On College Degree Fast, you can get your diploma, your transcripts, or both in the Pro package for $419. It's professional for the discerning taste. At Degree Major, the Pro Grad package comes with everything, including a cap and tassel for $449. Some diploma mills do try to sound a bit more legit than College Degree Fast. John Gray got his PhD from Columbia Pacific University. Carl Baugh got his from Pacific International University. What did the Pacific Ocean do to deserve this? If you go to the website for Charleston State University, you'll see some photos of students smiling and looking at their computers. But the apply page takes you to another pretty straightforward online shop for degrees. A diploma mill has no actual campus or professors or coursework. They are really just e-commerce startups at the end of the day. But like the eclectic medical colleges of yesteryear, there are some that are straight up fraud and selling you a degree with no actual training. But there are also unaccredited universities that are universities, in the sense that you take classes and write a dissertation and are granted a degree based on what you've learned. An unaccredited degree, but a degree. Now, when it comes to unaccredited schools in strange subject matter, no one has you covered more than the field of metaphysics. Per the chance that a philosophy nerd is watching this, I am not talking about your metaphysics, which is, to quote from Wikipedia, the branch of philosophy that studies the fundamental nature of reality. This includes being or existence, identity, change, consciousness, space, and time. Really light stuff. I have cried watching Interstellar. The metaphysics you will find at a metaphysical university is something else entirely. Metaphysics in this context is a science that explores reality beyond what physics currently acknowledges and uses the knowledge gained to benefit life on Earth. It's a real new age word salad, lots of affirmations, visualizations, meditation, the universe, that kind of stuff. You'll also see it referred to as spiritual metaphysics or divine metaphysics. And you can get an unaccredited degree in this metaphysics at a bunch of different schools. We've got the University of Metaphysics, the College of Divine Metaphysics, the International College of Metaphysical Theology, the Universal Light Seminary, the International Metaphysical Ministry, Nile Valley Medicine, Thomas Francis University, and the University of Sedona. There's like not actually a campus in Sedona. Like, of course it's in Sedona. The University of Sedona has a pretty extensive list of PhD programs. Everything from conscious-centered living, metaphysical counseling, metaphysical parapsychology, mystical research, and a brand new PhD in ancestral healing. Their doctoral programs cost, with a scholarship, from $990 to $1,290. To enroll, you're required to be 18, high school diploma, no prior felonies, and an interest in metaphysics. The degrees involve some coursework, writing a dissertation, and some extras depending on which program you're in. For example, the mystical research track requires students to submit a guided mystical meditation that they recorded. The accreditation tab on their website is lengthy. It opens with an address from the school's founder and has subheadings that say things like, look for qualities other than accreditation. To be fair, I think the lack of accreditation is kind of beside the point for anyone who's interested in going to one of these schools. You're trying to show that you know your stuff in metaphysics to other people who are interested in metaphysics. A stamp of approval from traditional academia might actually kind of undercut that. And look, the more I looked into these schools, the more I really wanted to get a degree from one. I'm not a believer in New Age stuff, but I am an enthusiast, an anthropologist, if we're being generous. And I also, not to be sincere, kind of just wanted to see what something like metaphysics would have to offer a skeptic of all things New Age. I also just really love school, and I haven't gotten an A in anything in years, and this kind of seemed like the chance to do that. So I went on a little hunt to find the metaphysics PhD for me. The main problem with this plan is that all of these metaphysical schools cost like $1,000, and no one was gonna give me a grant for this. I can't imagine why. But I didn't just want to go full diploma mill mode and get one on the cheap that I didn't have to work for. I wanted one on the cheap that I did have to work for. And for that, I landed on the PhD in metaphysics from Rose Ministries. You can find Rose Ministries on North Rainbow Boulevard in Las Vegas.
You know, things are always really legit when there's a how is it legal section of the website. Does the IRS have a role?
Rose Ministries' PhD in metaphysics is $79 and requires you to upload a dissertation demonstrating life experience and theological pursuits, knowledge, and study for our degree review board. The only specifications are file type and size, and that I need to be ordained, though not necessarily through Rose Ministries themselves. And I am technically already ordained by the Universal Life Church. I did that during art history class in 2013, and I am available to officiate weddings if anyone's interested, but I figured to make it official, we can do it through their website as well.
So we got a few packages here. The Ultimate Ministers package is $189.95, but down here the basic ordination package is $29.95. And I think this is what I will be doing. That's me. And we'll just call it 1 year. Oh, clergy parking permit. Let's include that for $9. This brings us to $38.95. My order has been received.
I just ordered my certificate to become ordained.
And Sylvia threw up.
I'm ordained.
Rose Ministries has granted this individual the authority to perform all religious services and rites, including baptism and marriage, as permitted by law. Then we've got my certificate, shiny. Literally, I'm a reverend. And then most importantly, my clergy parking permit.
Once I was officially a minister with a parking pass, it was time for my program to begin. For the sake of academic rigor, I did decide to get a PhD advisor, someone who I could propose my dissertation to and then defend it to at the end. And for this, I called up my former roommate, Dr. Caitlin Monahan.
Okay. Could you introduce yourself? Who are you? What's your deal?
Hello, I'm Caitlin. Dr. Caitlin Monahan. Dr. Monahan is another name that some call me because I received my PhD in 2023 from Stony Brook University in psychology. So that is my name, Caitlin Monahan, doctor.
Can you break down the 5 years of your life that was doing your PhD?
Well, there are different ways to break it down. You can break it down financially, physically, and emotionally. I think I repressed that.
When we watched your defense, the group chat was watching, and we were all in the group chat who's this bitch? Why is she asking you questions? And afterwards you're like, that is what happens in a defense.
Right.
They don't just say good job.
No, they don't. One of them said good job only, and I think that's because he was dealing with some emotional stress. But yeah, no, they don't just say good job, because the whole point is that it's supposed to be like a peer-reviewed process, and you're meant to be, critiqued based on everything that you learned the past 5 years. It's not about oh, you did it. It's this is what you did well, this is how you could improve, things like that.
I'm going to send you the PhD that I plan to get.
Okay.
This is going to be a PhD in metaphysics from beginnaministry.com.
Okay.
So there's a place to upload a dissertation, but there is no parameters. It's just file type and size.
Okay.
If you were to give me some rules, how long, what should be included? Should I do research or just pontificate on my own feelings?
So for metaphysics, you might want to just learn what that is. And then maybe Google what metaphysicists do. And then, I think maybe write a lot of times in dissertations, people write a personal page. So that could be in there about why it's important to you. And I think that would be sufficient.
The time has finally come to learn what metaphysics is. I've been trying to do this on Google to like very little avail, if I'm honest. Everything that I read does confuse me further. For example, metaphysics, which means that which comes after the physical, is the study of the spiritual root of physical life. This sacred undertaking follows a global tradition that goes back to time immemorial and is making a strong resurgence in modern times. To the metaphysician, we are immortal souls, seeds of the divine, who are created and sustained in love by God. This is our true nature. It is our soul that gives us our life and our consciousness. To achieve its full power and splendor, each soul must go through the process of spiritual evolution, gradually maturing into a fully developed divine being. So I figured the thing to do might to just be like, take a course that I found on Udemy, which is primarily for personal and professional development, but they also have an esoteric practices section of the website,
which has a whole bunch of courses on metaphysics. One of them touted metaphysics as a tool for weight loss. Another said metaphysics could be used to move things with your mind. There was also an introduction to biblical metaphysics, which was not the crossover event I was anticipating.
And I have purchased Metaphysics 101 and Metaphysics, Spirituality, and Magic
with a CK, both on sale for $14. Metaphysics 101 is taught by Tyron, who has a bachelor's in metaphysical science from the University of Sedona. He's got a very good voice. I loved listening to him talk.
Defining mysticism.
And Metaphysics, Spirituality, and Magic was taught by Nick.
Oh, he has a cat!
He has a PhD from the University of Metaphysics and a YouTube channel called Magicology, also with a CK.
I am like 4 minutes in, and I would just like to say that this guy, Nicholas, he is the only person who has explained this in a way that I understand. We love Nicholas.
Now, what is metaphysics exactly? Great question. Probably should have answered it 1,000 words ago. Didn't have a firm grasp on it at the time. To go back to our earlier definition, a science that explores reality beyond what physics currently acknowledges and uses the knowledge gained to benefit life on Earth. These courses kind of like unjumbled that and explain what that looks like in practice. It all starts with the universe. Whatever word you have for God, a higher power, that like connection to something bigger out in the world. In metaphysics, it's the universe, or the universal mind, or the universal intelligence. It is everywhere, it encompasses everything, it's you, it's me, it's them over there, it's it all. If you've ever gotten really high and had that like, oh my God, it's all connected, we're all just extensions of one another, oh my God, empathy, I'm feeling it for the first time in my life, it's that feeling. In metaphysics, you communicate with the universe through your thoughts and your actions, and you can use practices like meditations and visualizations and affirmations to like hone those thoughts, hone those actions, and create a deeper connection with the universe. If I had to define it in plain speak to a skeptic, I would say that metaphysics is a suite of New Age practices that people use for self-improvement. And maybe it was because Tyron and Nick like explained things well and didn't have New Age grifty tendencies about them, but like, I don't hate this. I don't hate this idea. And a lot of it I kind of connected with. It sounded like they were describing things that I do, but with kind of like mystical speak around them. Like in Nick's course, he talked about how you can use meditation as a tool for manifesting what you want in life. Because when you're in this meditative state, it lets you think about things in a different way than like your day-to-day going about your life thought patterns. It's a time to work through a thought that you've been meaning to work through. In the metaphysics world, that's a thought that you could use to program your mind, to talk to your subconscious, to attract something you desire. And in my world, this is how I feel when I go on a walk with no headphones. I'm always like realizing things on a walk. There was also a lot of talk about training your mind in metaphysics, and if you have ever done cognitive behavioral therapy, that's basically what it is. It's your brain thinking about why it thinks all the things that it thinks and how it could think about them in a better way. Lots of metaphysics to me just kind of feels like mindfulness with a tapestry on top of it. And if this spiritual, mystical component is what helps people connect to those things that are ultimately probably good for them, then okay. Now there is a cynic in me that's like, who cares about that? The science isn't real. These schools are charging $1,000 for fake science. There are people out there using the doctor honorific for false legitimacy. This is taking advantage of people. Have you never watched a cult documentary? And to that inner cynic, I say, yes, I have watched a lot of cult documentaries. Why else would I be reading about diploma mills for fun? And I would say that I agree with my inner cynic about all of that, but I also just don't want to be cynical. It would be very easy to Google metaphysics scam and see all of like the skeevy goings on. And I will be doing that for pleasure, but I kind of just want to be like genuine. See what I can get out of it. Put myself through a slightly difficult task and make some meaning out of it for the sake of narrative. Let me fucking live. Which brings us to my dissertation, which yes, I actually am going to write. A few years ago, I watched this interview with a scientist named Michael Ferguson. He was doing brain scans on Mormons when they were feeling the spirit, which is like their phrase for their sort of heightened spiritual experience connected to God. And he was seeing like what part of their brain was active when they were having that spiritual experience.
What's happening inside of the brain when individuals who are very religious are having experiences that they report to be transcendent, communal with the divine.
And I have been thinking about that interview pretty much ever since. I am like a deeply secular person with a pretty boring worldview, which is like, we're all here randomly, none of it means anything. When I die, nothing happens, and I don't believe in a higher power of any kind. But I have, since watching this video, thought a lot about like what lights up my brain in that way. Can I, with that worldview, access that feeling the spirit feeling without actually having to like believe in a spirit?
The one thing that definitely differentiates religion or religious thought is some concept of the sacred. And that can be completely open-ended. You know, that can be totally subject to individual creative constructions. Like, what to you, dear watcher, is sacred? Like, to me, human relationships are sacred. To me, human experience is sacred. To me, nature is sacred. That like I truly feel a sense of wonder and awe and reverence for the sacred nature of so many aspects of my otherwise mundane life.
If it's really just something lighting up in my brain, can I just like do it on my own? Is there merit to doing it on my own? And for myself, I have found that it is annoyingly good for me to seek those like deeply connected to the world around me type experiences. So in the most secular way possible, I feel the spirit writing music. I feel the spirit when I'm on a walk with no headphones. I feel the spirit when I'm painting. I feel the spirit on a long train ride. I feel the spirit when I'm lifting. I feel the spirit when I'm sitting in a camping chair in the river. I feel the spirit when I'm just a little bit high in the thrift store. I feel the spirit when I'm having a really good conversation. I feel the spirit when I reach a goal. I feel the spirit when I sing All Too Well 10-minute version with 70,000 other people who have all been all too well. These are my secular spiritual practices, and starting to identify them as that and like cultivating them through that lens, that's my metaphysics. I can have that warm, floaty, connective feeling to the world and others and myself that improves my life. No external belief system required.
Hello, Dr. Kate, it's me. I took my metaphysics courses. I know what it is now. I would like to propose my dissertation to you titled, It's All Within, Always Has Been, Facilitating Personal Growth Through Secular Metaphysics. Please let me know if you approve so that I can begin the writing process. Thank you. Okay, an embarrassing amount of time has passed. I came up with my dissertation concept in April. I recorded all that prior narration in May, and I just finished my actual dissertation yesterday, which would have been August 4th. I wish I could say I've been diligently writing a dissertation that feels like it took 4 months to write. That is not the case. What happened is that I severely procrastinated writing a paper because no one was forcing me to write it. And it turns out that due dates and grades were significant motivators for me in school. That being said, it's done. It is 5,600 words and 13 pages. And like 2/3 of that is interview transcripts. A typical PhD dissertation runs about 70,000 to 100,000 words, 250 to 300 pages. A typical dissertation also requires original research and a new contribution to science or scholarship. Whether I succeeded at that, that's up to the degree review board, huh? I would say that this was a fun challenge,
and maybe I wrote like a halfway interesting paper. I wouldn't call it an academic paper. It's like a decent medium post at best. But Rose Ministries did not have any examples of other people's work or specifications, so I wrote what I wrote. And at one point I did have to Google how do you conclude a research paper, because I haven't written one in a really long time, and also I went to art school. But yes, 4 months later, I will be sending it to both Dr. Kate and my friends Anne and Lauren in full. Anne and Lauren are not PhDs. They're just my friends who I have recruited to be on my defense panel because I thought I maybe needed a few more people. So, dissertation complete August 4th, 2024. And this that I'm about to record is what I sent to Kate, Anne, and Lauren for review.
In 1978, AIDS activist John S. James set up a website. Well, not quite a website because the internet didn't exist yet, but a forum on modem-linked computers called communitree. It was a digital bulletin board where high-minded Californians could post and respond to one another. Sort of the precursor to Googling your hyper-specific problems and adding Reddit to the end of the search. Communitree was a hotspot for talking about religion and spirituality, particularly on its origins board. The board had no central belief system. Christians and atheists and shamans alike could commingle on the board, without the norms of their own spaces or belief systems dictating the conversation. It was like a little pre-internet utopia that was ultimately taken down in a very current internet sort of way by some of the very first trolls, a group of high schoolers who figured out how to access the board and filled it with teenage filth. Communitree was shut down in 1982 and Origins went away with it. But it feels so like human that one of the first social networks was dedicated to that sort of spiritual seeking. People have been trying to make sense of it all since there have been people. I have been trying to make sense of it all since CCD, which did not in any capacity make sense to me. Why are we here? Who's to say? Maybe the little gay people in my phone have a better idea than I do. When I was growing up, I saw one expression of spirituality. It was believing in God, and if you believed in God, it was Christian God. And if you believed in Christian God, you had to follow a lot of rules that seemed kind of arbitrary to me. It didn't seem like you were supposed to ask questions or explore yourself, and because of all of that, I just didn't really consider myself to be a spiritual person. Even though I was having what I would now consider all along to be spiritual experiences. I remember feeling things that I didn't quite understand when I was working on something creative, or watching live music, or sitting in a river on a hot day. Certain things could just get me out of my head and help me feel a deeper connection to the world around me, almost like magic. The work of Dr. Michael Ferguson prompted me to start seeing these experiences in a different sort of light. He's a pioneer in the field of neurospirituality, the study of human spirituality using the methods of neuroscience. His research looks at what is physically happening in someone's brain when they are having a spiritual experience, and what physical sensations go along with that. It made me start to think of spirituality less as a set of rules to follow, or answers to my questions, or something that I had to specifically believe in, and to start thinking of it more as pursuing a feeling. And that perspective has allowed me to cultivate a sense of spirituality in my life despite being a very secular person. When you look across spiritual traditions, you'll see a bunch of similar practices. Prayer and meditation, fasting, singing and chanting, physical activity, reverence for nature, and gathering with people who interpret those practices similarly to you. You'll also see ex-religious people recreate those practices in a new context that registers with them now. TikTok is full of people realizing that the God they used to feel in church was really just their love of live music. When I worked at a yoga studio, some of the teachers would share the names of the poses in Sanskrit and connect things back to the Hindu origins of yoga, and some teachers were just teaching a workout class. Different kinds of classes would register with different people, but ultimately people would find their own little way to transcend whatever that meant to them. Metaphysics feels like it meets people with this particular impulse. The desire to see a little more magic in your own life, the desire to connect more deeply to the world around you, and to find a set of practices that help you do that for the purposes of self-improvement. It doesn't ask you to join or abandon a specific belief system or lack thereof. You can just talk about what you're doing with what resonates, or take a deeper dive if you so please. But I'd argue that a deep dive is not necessary to reap the benefits of a metaphysical practice, or even a belief in metaphysics whatsoever. One of the metaphysical ideas that resonates the most with me is the law of plenty. If we're the universe, if the universe is us, then everything we'll ever need, everyone will ever be, is already within. So we're all not just capable of having a sense of spirituality, we all already do, just in the very deeply individual forms that thing can take. I call this idea secular metaphysics. Metaphysical practices that secular people are using to cultivate a sense of spirituality for personal growth, without themselves having any particularly supernatural or metaphysical beliefs at all. I explored the idea of secular metaphysics through a series of interviews to see what metaphysical practices look like when applied to a secular life, and to encourage others to build a sense of secular spirituality through using metaphysics.
My name is Tara. I'm 29. I live in Atlanta with my fiance and 2 dogs. And I've known you for a very, very long time, since we were 10, I think, possibly sooner. And yeah, I used to be in recruiting. Now I am unemployed and planning a wedding. Yeah, it's a vibe. I got laid off, which, you know.
I do know.
Yeah. Yeah, so now I'm in a UX UI program through Google, and I am redefining my life in a lot of different ways. So here I am.
We love that late 20s identity shift.
No one tells you about it until it's happening, so...
And suddenly everyone is on a path of self-discovery at about age 28.
Precisely age 28. That's not even a joke. Like,
it's like, why am I seeking? What's happening to me?
Tara and I grew up just a few minutes from each other and met sometime in elementary school. Her memory says 5th grade, mine says 4th. Either way, we sat next to each other on the bus in middle and high school and maintained our adult friendship via group chat and Quiplash. We were both raised without religion, more or less. My parents gave up on the Catholicism of it all when I was like 7, and hers were free-thinking Iranian immigrants of intellectually curious children. In high school, we found ourselves at Young Life, which is basically a youth group but not attached to any one particular church. We were primarily there to socialize, but we were also the kinds of teens that like to talk about stuff like that, ponderers, if you will, discussing whether God is real at the lunch table. I'm sure it wasn't annoying at all. We both eventually just became adult atheists, but Tara found herself drawn to a different spiritual practice a couple years ago.
Do you remember the first time you like saw tarot, or like just like someone like do a reading for you at a party? Like, how did you encounter it?
I had a couple coworkers that I was close with that were really into it, and that's kind of what started it off. And I decided, it actually timed out perfectly during COVID, because that's when I like studied like the deck and what every card meant and every suit meant and everything like that.
Not a lot else to do at that time.
Right, exactly. I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to play video games and do this. Like, that was basically my life, so.
Yeah. How did you kind of square those, like, two sides of yourself? The side of you that's like, this is interesting and I want to dive in, and the, like, I don't know. I have this side of me that's like, but it's not real.
I kind of ask myself that, too, because at the end of the day, they're inanimate objects. They're not telling your future. They're not... informing you of something that you need to be like it's, again, not telling your future. It's not doing anything particularly mystical, I would say. But I kind of like over time realized that for me it was like a form of meditation. So like whatever cards ended up in front of me kind of helped me dive into a problem mentally a little bit deeper, or kind of have a different perspective on whatever I have going on. So that felt like a very like guided form of meditation for me that wasn't necessarily sitting in silence, because I'm not good at that either. So.
Anxious girlies who can't sit in silence.
Cannot do it. My effects or prescription says no thank you.
How does it work, like, for you? Like, you pull one card a day, you do a full suite, like, what's your routine?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. A lot of people do one card pulls, and I do one card pulls when I'm like in a rush, or I have something like fairly like low stakes that I need mental clarity on. Typically I do 3-card spread, and the way that I typically kind of approach it, some people do beginning, middle, end, or first, second, third. I view my 3-card spread as like the life cycle of the problem I'm having, or just like different forms of awareness of the problem I'm having. I would say this was more pertinent about a year or so ago when I was trying to leave government contracting, and I was like desperate to like go into something else. And basically a lot of my spreads for like 3-4 weeks straight were like, leave your job, find a different industry, it's going to be challenging, but take that first step. Like, that was very much the message I was receiving. And so the cards are kind of similar in the sense of it gives you just enough ambiguity to really mold it to what you want it to say to you a little bit.
Yeah, but like perhaps that is the value of it, of like
1,000, and I think like that's not a bad thing. It's a way to build structure around your thoughts and whatever you have going on, and to me that can be like very beneficial.
Something that it keeps coming up as I like talk to people and read about this stuff is I feel like it's cognitive behavioral therapy with like a fun extra step to it.
It's spicy. It's spicy CBT. Yeah.
To me, like spicy CBT, I can connect to a little more than like the mysticism of it all. But like I really want to connect to the mysticism of it all, which is kind of hard to do.
And I do too, because it seems like such a fun crowd to be a part of. Like, honestly, like I just love the overall, like, just, like the vibe of the whole thing. Like people that actually practice witchcraft and like, they make potions and stuff, and they have altars in their house.
The altars.
Oh my god, the altars
so
are amazing. And they like, confer with goddesses and stuff like that. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I'd love to hang out with Athena. That'd be sick. But like, I don't know how that works. And like in my mind, that's not a thing that you can do, because Athena, for all intents and purposes, is a fictional being. Logically, I can't do it.
Why do you think it's worth engaging with all of this when we don't actually know anything?
Because I think it makes us feel better, Like, that's why people turn to religion. That's why people, turn to, I don't know, just like groups of certain types or what have you. Like, I think because at the end of the day, we don't know for sure. We have to like assign some meaning and logic behind it, whether if it's being Catholic or an atheist or whatever, of you at least telling yourself there is something, there isn't anything, or, if you're practicing witchcraft of, if I set up this altar, then aspects of nature will guide me in this, or, just kind of assigning structure and a foundation to that mystery helps us feel like less of like an ant on this earth. It makes us feel like we may or may not have free will. But
can't think about that one too long.
No. Or if like everything's like predetermined, and like that's scary. Don't love that. But it just helps us feel less like chaotic and afraid.
I feel like I was born with some indescribable magnetic pull to make stuff. That pull has taken many forms over the years. Drawing and painting as a kid, music and photography as a young adult, podcasts and essays once my frontal lobe finally formed. Making stuff is the biggest constant in my life, and it is also the thing that I have the hardest time explaining. I make stuff because I want to, of course, but there's almost a compulsion to do it. Like I'd cease to exist if all my ideas just died in my brain. There's something actually so sincerely magical about the creative process. When you see or hear something in your head and you spend time figuring how to bring that thing out into the world and make it real. Cultivating my creative practice over my life has been essentially a giant spiritual project. It's not just something you do or feel when you're like in the middle of painting something. It's like a whole way of looking at and interpreting the world. It's like the universe gave you the gift of an idea, and then my gift in return is that I make that idea into something. An esoteric YouTube video, perhaps. And that communication back and forth, that's how I feel I best connect with the world around me and with other people. But that is all very easy to lose sight of when you have to support yourself making your creative work.
All right, you can introduce yourself.
My name is Sam Gellerstein. Oh, my name is Sam Gellerstein. I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I am a member of and founder of the band called Snack Time. And I've been living in Philadelphia for now 12 years.
This is Sam. He's a musician. We went to art school together. But long before that, he started playing trombone in the school band for a pretty classic reason.
I was good at it, and so I liked it because I got instant gratification from it. So it's like, cool, like this is good, I'm good, we're good.
But before long, he started to feel that sort of indescribable making things magic. And as a musician, he especially felt it when playing with other people.
It's interesting because like I feel like And maybe it's just, I've always been like a group project kind of guy. Yeah. I've always been like, I like a squad, I like a team, I like a band. So it was more so the connection, the camaraderie I felt with everyone else. And I feel like it was like, oh, we're all feeling this, versus like, oh, I'm feeling this by myself. Because like,
it's like you feel this too?
Yeah, it's like, oh, we're all doing this together. I think that like synergy is really what I go for. And like really, I think one of the main things I search for in musical experience is that we're all up here serving the same purpose, serving the same goal. And when everyone's on the same path, and like even non-musically, when we're just energetically feeling it, it feels awesome. That's something I really look for.
The first time he found himself losing that feeling was in art school, where suddenly there was this external pressure on the creative process that wasn't there before.
I feel like early on I had the feeling of like, yeah, like it sucks that art school is cynical. And then I kind of got there for a second, and I kind of thought like, oh, well, maybe I need to make something serious. Because as you know, like I had a punk band through college, and it was really fun and not quote unquote serious, but you know, that was always like, oh, this is like a little fun side thing in lieu of my, or not in lieu of, but like in the meantime while I build my real musician career. And for years I went to grad school and I write this music that meant nothing to me. It was cool, it sounded good or whatever, but like it didn't mean anything to me. I was just writing stuff that I thought was complex, or like I was like, this will show my degree's worth. Yeah. And so it took me a long time to get back to the feeling of like, oh my God, we're just creating this music for the love of it, and also for the purpose of entertainment and the purpose of like gathering. And like, so it wasn't until a couple years ago that I started to write music that felt a little bit more true to me.
That music Sam started writing a few years ago was for a brass band called Snack Time. It was originally an event series where chefs and musicians collaborated, but then the coronavirus happened and that version of Snack Time died. But later in 2020, that band started to play together again.
And we're like, fuck it, like outdoor dining restrictions are kind of lifted. We can play for people outside, and that's like what brass bands do. That's what they do in New Orleans for as long as New Orleans has been around, and like that's what New York musicians have been doing forever. So we just started to bring a little bit of that to Philly. We brought it out and just started to do it every day, and then the audience started to grow and grow and grow, and it became something bigger. It was the one moment Snack Time where I was like, fuck, I gotta go to work today. It was like every single day it was like, we're gonna go play for the people in the park and it's gonna be sick and I can't wait. I don't want to call I don't want to call it a trance, but it was almost like a trance. Like we would start playing and then the crowd would build and people would be popping and dancing and singing, and like it's a social communal gathering that I think that like kind of has happened less in all sorts of communities, but like the idea of just gathering and having a good time and being able to be with other people without any sort of pretense other than we're here to have a fun experience together.
Yeah. His trance comment reminded me of those TikToks I keep seeing of people who think that they were feeling God during worship music as a kid, but ultimately they were just enjoying live music. Making music gives some people that feeling, experiencing music gives other people that feeling, that dialogue back and forth, almost like the world talking to itself.
That's Hillsong.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're just not like, you know, trying to steal everyone's money and do weird culty stuff, but yeah, like the power of music is, you know, and like obviously like I'm not gonna reach into other people's thoughts and reach into other people's beliefs and say like it's this, but like, you know, if you listen to Explosions in the Sky and there's a beautiful text about God, and you know, it is what it is. Like if it makes you feel that way, it is. And that's, I remember the first time I spent most of, I was raised Jewish, had a bar mitzvah, and then spent most of the rest of my adult years as an agnostic person. And I remember I was playing a gig in a Catholic church, and you know, there's these people who were coming up for healing, and they were coming up for prayer, and like, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, you know, there are people who are literally able to make themselves feel better based off of just changing their mental thing. Like, if you could reframe your horrible, negative, seething thoughts, sometimes you can heal yourself. And in that case, if God, whatever that means to you, is the one that got you there, then that shit's real as fuck. It's just the tool that makes you able to believe in yourself, and the tool that makes you able to try to strive to be better, try to strive to be healthier, try to strive to do anything without that you feel powerless in. And that's the scariest thing, is I think is admitting the powerlessness, and then if you need a tool, whether it be powerful music or God's prayer or whatever it is, if that gives you the strength to do it, and that whatever that means to you is real.
I am what the kids would call an anxious girly, and I ease that anxiety primarily by writing lists and checking things off of them. I love to be in control, I love to schedule, and I love to follow that schedule as closely as I can. But in the last couple of years, I felt more open to challenging myself to be less rigid. This has looked a couple of ways. I've been trying to do less black and white thinking, I've been trying new activities that are out of my comfort zone, I've been going on aimless walks with no errand attached to them for maximum efficiency. And a real good challenge is forcing myself to feel empathy for people I don't agree with and don't like. All of this has gotten me more comfortable with the idea that sometimes I just don't know. And that if I think something or feel something or do something, it doesn't need to be like such a certain act. The things I think can change. I can give some new thoughts a chance. And if it's not the thought for me, I'm not a bad person for giving it a try. I spent much of my early 20s with Twitter brainworms, if it is not obvious, and I feared that trying to be less rigid and more open was somehow abandoning my values. But doing that actually helped me solidify those values and really know what I think and why I think it on a deeper level, because I felt safer to explore those ideas in my own head. Rest in peace, brainworms. You would have hated my confident sense of self. This aligns well, I think, with the exploratory nature of metaphysics and the spiritual act of really getting to know yourself. One tool that presented both a huge challenge and help in this regard for me was psychedelics. In my regular mind, I can stop myself from going certain places or thinking certain things if I don't feel ready to do that. In an altered state of mind, I have to be open to wherever my brain wants to go. Even though I've been practicing being less rigid for a few years, the thought of like fully letting go to that was pretty scary for me. One of the biggest worries I had going into my first psychedelic experience is that it would really rock my ideas around spirituality. Some people believe psychedelics are just doing something chemical up in your brain. Some people believe they literally connect you with the literal divine. I fall into the former category, and I really didn't want to fall into the latter by accident, but ultimately allowing myself to just let go, have the experience, not try and rationalize it to myself or explain it to myself while it was happening, that taught me a lot. It is not like me to wade into a true unknown, but doing things that are not typically like me have been my biggest catalyst for growth. It's the law of plenty all over again. Whether it's the literal divine or the chemical divine, it kind of doesn't matter, actually. I have the ability and the option to experience it. It kind of doesn't matter which one it is. I spoke to my friend Haley about how she's used altered states of mind and psychedelics for personal growth over many years, and how that practice has informed her ideas around spirituality.
Could you introduce yourself for the people?
My name is Haley. I still go by my maiden name even though it's legally not that, but I'm Haley Dow. I'm 30 years old. I am an artist, and also my day job is I basically do glorified MySpace coding, and it's very fun, and I have 3 cats, and that's about all you need to know, I feel like.
If we go back in time a bit, can you describe your religious upbringing for me?
Oh, sure. I was raised Catholic, but not practicing. My mom just really wanted us to get what you call Sunday school in a Catholic church, at least in New Jersey, is CCD, which I don't know what it actually stands for, but we used to call it Catholic Children's Detention, because it was every Monday night during the school year, and it was so not the vibe. I definitely did things to get under my mom's skin, some zombie Jesus remarks on Easter, just to bother her, technically if he rose from the dead, he's a zombie, and she was like, stop it, don't say that. On top of all the bad things that organized religion did socially to our world, I was just this is stupid.
When Haley was a teen and tormenting her Catholic mother, she also read the book Go Ask Alice. It's a fictional diary of a teenage drug addict, written by a Mormon youth counselor named Beatrice Sparks. She wrote a lot of these diary-style books that were supposed to serve as a warning for teens around things like drugs, teenage pregnancy, and Satanism. The books scared plenty of teenagers straight, but Go Ask Alice mostly made Haley want to try LSD, which she eventually did, among other psychedelics, starting later in college. She enjoyed both the intense introspection and the pretty colors. But it was mostly just a for-fun experience. That changed with the trip that happened after college on mushrooms.
It was simultaneously the most important thing that had happened to me at that time, and most intense and beautiful, and the most fucking terrifying thing that I have ever experienced. This was in 2018, so this was like right before shit started hitting the fan with my relationship with my ex. We had already opened our relationship, so I was in a polyamorous relationship with him, which was still not really sure what he was thinking here, but it was his idea. And then the relationship started to like implode instantly, and he was just like, uh-oh, I'm reaping what I sowed, oh no.
Oh no. Who could have foreseen this?
But I was like, at that time, smoking weed every day kind of as a crutch to like numb myself, because there was a lot of like emotional abuse happening with my relationship with that guy. So I was not in a great like headspace, and I got these mushrooms. Nathan, my husband, my now husband, was with me at the time, and he's done them a bunch before. So I was like, okay, I have a trip sitter, I feel very safe, this is gonna be great. I basically was like, what's the full dose? Nathan told me. I took that many, and then I quickly realized that I was like having a way different experience. I had the most insane like auditory hallucinations during this. Like I was hearing all of my own body noises, like my blood rushing in my ears, me swallowing, me breathing, combined with all of like the house noises and the noises outside. And it like became like musical. It like sounded like a song. It was like really fucking weird, and I was kind of just like in awe and wonder like while this was happening. And at a certain point, like I was saying something that I was having a conversation with Nathan, and I could not understand what I was saying, but I was like, did I just say real words to you? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, what? Like he knew what I meant, and to me I was speaking gibberish. So very quickly after this happened, I started crying, and I was like, why am I crying? And he was like, I don't know, like, why are you crying? And I just started like thinking about like everything that was going on at the time, mostly with that relationship. And I was just like, I can't, like, I didn't say this to him at the time because like I didn't want to stress him out, but internally I was like, I can't like be doing this anymore. Like I can't live like this. My ex was trying to move us to Oregon, and I'm pretty sure it was like partially to just like cut me off from the people in my life. So I realized that.
Was this like the first time you had let your brain had let itself say like, I can't be in this relationship anymore?
For sure. I think like before that I had a couple moments where I was like, something bad is happening to me. One of them being like when I read the list of like how to know if somebody's gaslighting you like thing, and I was like, oh shit, like but that was the first time I was like, this like can't go any further.
Did you break up soon after that?
Yes. That was July 14th, and then 3 weeks later I broke up with him, like to the day.
Wow.
Basically. I think after that trip I kind of started looking at it more like as a tool than just like a haha funny time drug. Like I was like, this is like gonna help me kind of like unpack things.
Since then, she's incorporated psychedelic use alongside therapy to help herself work through things. And while that was happening, she also found herself more open to spirituality than she had been before.
I still don't know if like I think there's a God. If there is, I don't think God really like is paying a whole lot of attention to us. Like it's just like part of nature. And I think the biggest thing that like stuck out to me was that like I was thinking a lot about like my soul and like if people have souls, and I was like, I think we do, but and then when I got to the point of like, well, what happens to my soul after my body dies, I basically was just like, it doesn't really matter. And that was like so freeing, because it's like I don't need like my soul going somewhere after I die has no bearing on like what my soul can do right now. And the idea that my soul is separate from my body and my brain.
That opened you up to like the possibility of a something out there.
I feel like I was always hopeful. Like I've always been like, it would be cool if there was a something out there. I think that experience in particular helped me feel like not as afraid of like, well, what if there isn't? Which is like always where I got hung up on before. I think that's where I landed, is like, it really doesn't matter what happens to my soul. Like, maybe my soul dies with me, but like, I'm here right now, so I can do all these things that I want to do with my soul and not really worry about like where it may or may not go, or like what may or may not happen, because like I really can't know. Like, and Nathan is like a total skeptic of like all things, including ghosts, which we have argued about a lot, because I was like, you were not in the spruce storm, you were not there.
There was absolutely a ghost in that door.
That bitch was haunted.
How has psychedelic use, from like a personal growth perspective, like added to your life? Like, what does it help you maybe access in yourself that you weren't able to before?
Definitely like connecting things like in my life. Like, I feel like it's easier to like kind of like think back on things while you're in that state and be like, I felt this way because of like X, Y, and Z. Where when you're not like that, you're just in your like triggered like normal brain. You're like, why am I such a piece of shit? Like, and that's like basically where it ends. Like, it's also
it's like it's suddenly safe to go there.
Right. It's not only safe, it's like you have to go there. Like, I feel like it kind of just like takes you. There's this like phrase that Nathan read on somebody's like trip report on the internet like forever ago that has stuck with me this whole time, and it's that you don't always get the trip you want, but you do get the trip you need. And I feel that in my bones. Like, all those times I was like, I'm just gonna have fun, and my brain was like, absolutely fucking not. You swine, sit down and cry. I find that like it's much easier now, like when I do realize I'm triggered, to kind of like walk myself through it. I don't get that like white hot anxiety the same way as I used to. And like, even though I'm not in therapy right now, like when I do have those thoughts, I follow them through. Like, I'm like, you know, like, why am I feeling this way? And like, why is this coming up when I'm thinking about this thing? Like, so it's helped me a lot, like personally. I feel like I've done a ton of like inner work, like, which I guess like the spiritual girlies would call shadow work. I'm definitely there. Like, I feel like I'll always be there, like, to a certain degree, but it's helped me a lot to kind of be like, you know what, this is cool. Like, I'll be fine. Like,
yeah, I can actually think about this in a way that is not going to like send me to the deep dark place.
Exactly.
In conclusion, secular metaphysics is a way for individuals to cultivate a sense of spirituality for personal growth, without needing to have distinct spiritual or metaphysical beliefs of their own. If someone is interested in reframing their hobbies or practices in this light, I recommend embracing the idea of optimistic nihilism. Whether nothing matters and nothing is real, or everything matters and everything is real, we can all create whatever sense of purpose and meaning resonates most with us. It does not have to be real to be meaningful.
Get ready with me to defend my fake dissertation. We're going collared shirt, because that's, you know, formal. And then we're going extra formal with a tie, which I don't know how to put on, so I do need to Google this. How to tie a tie. Do you like my outfit?
Yes. I think it looks
Do you think I look academic?
Yes, I like the sweatpants. That's the most academic part of it all.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my dissertation defense so that I can become a doctor of metaphysics. You've all been instructed to ask one question.
I can kick us off.
You can also introduce yourself.
Sure.
Oh yeah, should we go around the horn?
Let's go around the horn. My name is Anne. My qualifications for hearing this thesis today are that I am one half of the famous friend duo, Anne and Anna. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for joining.
Hello,
My name is Lauren. I am not sure that I have any qualifications to be here, but I am going to give it my all.
Thank you.
Hello, all. I am Caitlin. It's actually Dr. Monahan, legally. I actually have a PhD, humble brag. So I am here to defend all doctors and to support all future doctors.
The future is doctor.
Yes, yes, yes.
Lean in.
Great.
My question is, in addition to the examples provided in your thesis, are you able to expound on any other activities in your own life that meet the criteria that you've presented for a secular metaphysical practice?
One that I would have liked to include, but no one offered it up to me, was exercise, which there is like intense physical experiences seen across many spiritual traditions. I have found that like inducing an intense physical experience and the process of working towards a goal in that setting has been a secular spiritual experience for me.
Would you go so far as to say that gains are your religion?
That's my answer.
Thank you for your response.
Next.
I would like to go next.
Yes.
I have a little bit of preamble, if that's okay.
Sure.
I have had a very personal one-sided beef with the study of philosophy and anything related to it. Ever since I was forced to take a philosophy class in college that was taught by an asshole professor who made us buy a textbook that he wrote and may or may not have allegedly slept with students historically, maybe allegedly. And my main gripes stem from like the general focus on conceptual and like abstract rather than external tangible realities. So I appreciate this approach to metaphysics as being rooted not only in like a secular framework, but also in a very sort of like tangible material framework for a lot of people. So with all that said, what has been the significance for you of taking the metaphysical out of the meta and into the physical by, say, like making tangible art as a means of exploring your own self-actualization?
Great question. I think when you have an idea and you are like the kind of person who makes art, you will go completely insane if you do not make the idea come to be. I've had the idea for this in my head for almost 2 years, and I could not stop thinking about it for that time. So part of the benefit is that I don't have to think about it anymore once I have done it and put it out into the world. Then I am free. And the other part is that it's like perpetually a joy to make things, and then a bunch of people are like, I feel this too. I've thought about this too. I never knew how to word it. That's kind of like a magical experience in the making of things. Does that answer your question?
It does, yes. Thank you for that reflection.
Thank you for your lovely question. And I agree with your disdain for the field of philosophy.
Yeah, it sucks, actually.
So I'm going to go real nerdy on this one and actually investigate your proposal with an actual, like, as if I were actually critically evaluating a graduate student in a psychology program. So I noticed that you use the word beliefs quite often.
Yes.
Because that is what metaphysics is kind of based upon, and the application of it and whatnot. Is there an objective truth in people's beliefs?
No.
No. Okay, so amazing. We got that out of the way. But is there a way to quantify people's beliefs in a way that captures the depth of what they're thinking? I'm thinking from a research hat right now. Like, if you're gonna study metaphysics in an applied sense, where you're like asking people, like, is there how would you go about quantifying people's beliefs? Like, would you make a scale? Is this like a qualitative, quantitative approach?
I think it would be hard to do anything quantitative because the worldview itself is lacking in any sort of quantitative evidence to back it up. But I guess if you wanted to measure people's adherence, maybe the way I would do that would be to break it up into like a scale of belief and then a scale of practice.
Okay.
because you could ask a series of questions where someone could reflect, is this how they conceive the universe?
Right.
Is this how they believe meditation interacts with that universe? But you could also look at the activity side of metaphysics, which is, are they doing these things and applying them in their life? One could also do the application without the belief, which is the thesis statement.
Amazing. I love it. I think you should do follow-up research, follow-up studies on this.
Once I get into my postdoc.
Once you get into your postdoc, we're not hiring right now, but maybe next semester.
PhD 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to leave the room and let you discuss amongst yourselves whether you want to tell me to submit it or not. Please tell me to submit it. I'm not writing anything else. I've answered your riddles 3. Just text me when you're ready.
Goodbye.
Slayed.
Yeah, I think she slayed.
Yeah, killed it.
3 strong pieces of evidence, like a 5-paragraph essay, which is about the only thing that I really know how to judge on how much it proved a point.
That's all you need, the 5-paragraph essay.
Yeah, I feel very good about approving this dissertation.
Caitlin, would you say that this is the most confident you've felt about a decision like this in your academic career?
I would say so. And I've been through a lot of these, and I would say that this is the best one I've ever seen. So,
should we bring her back in?
Bring her back in.
Hello.
Hello.
What did you decide?
Congratulations, Dr. Ladd. Future Dr. Ladd, maybe?
Yay! Your dissertation has been approved and properly defended.
Yes.
Thank you, my panel, for your participation. It was great.
We believe in you, metaphysically and really.
Wow, that's beautiful. Fellas, it's official. I passed my defense. It's time to order. It's time to order my PhD. Let's go to beginaministry.com. Minister store. So once again, this is asking for my full name and my dissertation. And that is it. Tagged Doctor. My order has been received. So here's what happened. I ordered my PhD from Rose Ministries on August 20th. 11 days later, on August 31st, it finally shipped. I feared it was taking so long because someone was actually reading my dissertation and was like potentially going to reject it, which is a humbling feeling. But it shipped. It shipped 11 days later without a tracking number, and it did not arrive. I emailed Rose Ministries on September 10th to be like, hey, do you have a tracking number? Do you have any way to check the whereabouts of my PhD? And they said, nope, give it the full 7 to 10 business days from the date it shipped, and then contact the post office if it doesn't show up. It did not arrive within 7 to 10 business days. So my PhD was either stolen off my stoop, which like could have happened, but I was working downstairs for like 2 weeks to make sure I intercepted it just in case. Or this bitch is lost in the mail. And if I show up at Philadelphia post office without a slip or a tracking number, they're gonna laugh at me. So I submitted a missing mail report on the USPS website, but I feel like this one has been lost to the universe, if you will. It seems as though I was granted a PhD, but did not receive one. And that cannot be how this ends. So I ordered yet another PhD in metaphysics, this time from the Universal Life Church. Their only requirement they had was to be ordained, which, as previously discussed, I am. Twice over. This PhD in metaphysics cost $19.99. I upgraded to get the premium certificate holder for an additional $14.99. What's a girl gotta do to get a PhD in metaphysics around here? The answer, it seems, is order 2 of them. You know how sometimes you have to say this edible ain't shit to activate it? That's also what you have to do with metaphysical degrees. I'm not going to show you little freaks my address, but the original one just arrived. It's tomorrow. It's September 13th. Now I have 2. Are we back? Are we over? It's getting a little hard to say at this point. Degree number 2, my replacement degree, shipped normal. It had an anticipated arrival date, and then I noticed that it went to Jersey, which is odd because I live in Pennsylvania,
And then I noticed that it went to Woodside, New York, which is odd because I used to live there 5 years ago, but I certainly don't live there anymore. And then I went to Brooklyn, and then I went back to Woodside, and then I went to Brooklyn, and then it's back in Woodside again. And it has produced a tracking page so comical that I had to learn how to animate to show it to you. I think it's being forwarded between 2 different former addresses of mine. So we're gonna call it. We're just gonna go back to 1 degree, the original degree, all right? It's time. Oh. Rose Ministries hereby confers upon Anna Ladd the honorary degree of Doctor of Metaphysics. I fear this means someone read my dissertation. Do you like it? She doesn't like it. You are looking at the newly minted Dr. Ladd. As you have seen over the last hour and a bit, I did not, at any point, put in the amount of time or gain a level of expertise or contribute to science in a way that even remotely reflects that of an actual PhD. None of this even came close to being the amount of work I put into 1 undergraduate class. And I went to an art school that spontaneously closed over the course of a week due to a mysteriously missing $40 million that no one can seem to account for. That happened halfway through working on this. Isn't that fun and novel? I don't say this to shade Rose Ministries in particular. They do say, not on the individual degree pages themselves, but on a more general search page, that these are non-accredited honorary degrees for the purpose of elevating one's professional stature as a minister. That is, to be fair, significantly more straightforward about the nature of this degree than many of the other metaphysical schools. As far as those other metaphysical schools, like the ones that actually operate more as like a school where you have some coursework and someone who actually reads your paper at the end. The University of Metaphysics has some examples of what this looks like on their website. Their undergraduates need to complete 48 modules. Master's students need to complete 18 modules with a 6,000-word thesis. The modules cover things like the metaphysical principles of winning the game of life and eliminating the negative, strengthening the positive for undergraduates, and dream interpretation and self-hypnosis for master's students. These modules, at least the ones they have examples of on their website, are only a few pages long and require some sort of meditation or self-reflection at the end. The exam you have to take to get a bachelor's degree from there is 48 questions, graded pass-fail, open book. Their doctoral students need to write a dissertation between 10,000 and 25,000 words, which is longer than mine. It appears that they used to have examples of dissertations on their website, but those are now hidden inside the student center for some reason. We'll never know. I did find one example on Course Hero called The Utility of Metaphysics Within the Professional Paradigm. It talks about how this individual uses metaphysical principles like positive thinking and self-confidence in the trainings that they do with professionals. And my feelings about going to the University of Metaphysics and getting any one of those degrees are that it seems like a perfectly fine thing to do for personal development reasons, but none of those assignments at any of those 3 levels are even remotely reflective of the credentialing being given for them. Words mean things. A doctoral or master's or bachelor's degree denotes something, and these metaphysical schools are not universities granting degrees. They are online courses granting certificates of completion. Which is fine. If you finished your course at the University of Sedona, that means something. It just doesn't mean what it says it means. It certainly does not mean what we understand doctor to mean. And I think that's where the issue lies for me, is that people could use these words to mean things that they do not. If this is for your own learning, great. If this is to make you appear to be a more legitimate doctor, pastor, counselor than you are truly credentialed to be, and you are working with people in a mental or spiritual health capacity who have been misled, that concerns me. On the other hand, we've probably all had a bad experience with a doctor. And if you want to be a Nicholas of Magicology type and educate people on YouTube about metaphysics, which is a perfectly fine thing to do with your life, these are the options available to you. You can self-study and have no credential, or you can study at a metaphysical school and have a misleading credential. If I'm him, I guess I'd probably pick the latter. That's not a nefarious choice on his part, but it is also a choice that could be used nefariously
very easily. A quick way to throw doctor in front of your name so you sound more legit. So you can sell some weird supplements that people take in place of real medical treatment that make them shit their brains out. That's where my concern lies, is how the degrees are used out in the world. That concerns me much more so than the other side of the coin, that the schools are like fleecing their own students somehow, that they think they're getting a real doctorate and they somehow find out later that that's not the case. I'm sure that has happened at some point, but based on how the schools position themselves and all the available information on their website and our general cultural understanding of what a PhD is and the general vibe of metaphysics, I'm just not super worried about that. I guess I just find the choice of language around these metaphysical schools to be kind of strange. None of this exists within the bounds of traditional academia. The metaphysicists do not seem to want it to, so why frame it within those bounds? Why not have some like metaphysical esoteric credentialing system that better reflects what the school is actually offering? I think that would actually be helpful for these schools, image-wise, in terms of how they appear to people who stumble upon them, because there wouldn't be such an established meaning to those words to compare them to. That comparison prompts an immediate judgment. I know because that's what I did when I first found out about metaphysical schools. I discovered them while working on my last video because one of the people in it had gotten her doctorate from the College of Divine Metaphysics.
She had a fruitful career in which the Massachusetts Attorney General sued her for claiming an energy enzyme soup could cure AIDS, among other things. She was ordered to stop representing herself as a physician despite her doctoral degree in divinity from the College of Divine Metaphysics in Indianapolis.
And she was using that doctorate to promote a weird diet in which you only eat raw fruits and vegetables. So the whole thing immediately registers as both skeevy and silly. My brain goes, haha, clipart.edu.scam. This is Anna Catnip, and I'm gonna have so much fun reading about how silly and skeevy it is. And if I had not taken this particular bit way too far, that's where I would have left it. That's often where I leave it. I would have lumped metaphysical schools in with the more straightforward diploma mills and moved on to the next weird little thing I encountered in the next weird little corner of the internet that I look at for fun. And now, having done this, what I am trying to do is not have catnip brain about weird internet stuff all the time. Not everything merits a feature-length deep dive. Some would say that this also did not merit a feature-length deep dive, but it's fine. But there is a part of me that yearns to debunk and laugh, and I will always do some of that, but I would like to do less of that. And instead indulge the part of me that wants to understand. And I very much now understand why metaphysics would appeal to someone in the same way that mindfulness appeals to me. I am here for some ever so slightly fancy words that say, I can't fix everything, I can't control everything, but I can control how I react to it, because it's all within, and always has been.
I'm working for an hourly wage. I went to high school, didn't do great. Still I gotta make more cash. More education is what